Started. This is Brandon Carlisle here with Tough Enough Movement. We're here with Nick Urankar from CrossFit. He owns a box, is a coach, online influencer. And today we'll just talk to him, go through his life and kind of what led him to where he is now. Nick, let's just start out. Where are you from?
I currently live in Granger, Indiana, which is basically a suburb of South Bend. So right by Notre Dame. That's kind of the easiest one. I lived maybe a mile south of it, have a few rental properties now around it, Notre Dame that is, and then moved over to Granger, which is the kind of more subdivision area.
Yeah, that happens when you get wife and kids and everything like that. You got to get in those suburbs, you know?
Exactly. The
So,
birds.
okay, so where were you born and raised? And we'll start there and then we'll go kind of quickly through your life of school and everything like that. What led you to college football? What led you into CrossFit and where you're at now? So let's just start where you went.
I'll try to keep it short, Cliff Notes. Born in Cleveland when I was one. My family moved to Florida. Lived in Boca Raton, which is just north of Miami, for about 8 years. Family moved up to Indiana, which would be Valpo. We moved in with my aunt, got a house right by her. Parents got divorced, started going to different schools. I think I went to like 8 different schools in total. But we basically just get an apartment, go to school for a year, move. Had 2 siblings at the time, just my mom. She worked all the time, and I grew up in the Boys and Girls Club, basically just playing sports. And then hanging out with my siblings, really. So I
Yeah.
get dropped off at school like 5:30 a.m. and they bus us at 5:30 p.m. to the Boys and Girls Club. And when my mom was off work, she'd pick us up. My mom finally got remarried. We jumped around even there. We rented. And then when I was, geez, 13, 14, they decided to move to the country. And I was big into soccer, big soccer player. And my stepdad wasn't a fan of it.
Yeah.
Well, we moved to the country and they didn't have soccer. So he's like, now you got to play football. And then went basically lived in the country, stayed there till I graduated high school. Did not want to stay in Indiana, which this at this time was North Judson, country town. And my mom was like, please stay up here so we can watch you play football. And I was
Yep.
like, I want to go to Florida. Like, I want to be in Florida. And she talked me into it. I committed to play football. Right when my freshman season ended, my family was like, we're moving back to Florida. And they,
You're like, great. Right after you've talked me into signing up here. And then
yeah, yeah. So then at that point, I was like, I can't leave. So that kind of brought me there. But, through my childhood, I basically played every sport there was always outside running around doing something. Very naive to uh, a lot of stuff. I was around a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of stuff at a young age that I was always like, oh, but I play sports and I do these things. And, people had nicknames for me and they would always stick up for me. I'd be out and people would be doing stuff, bad drugs. And people would ask me, and there'd always be somebody that would step up and be like, no, Nick's going somewhere. He's going to do something with his life. Like, so it was really cool to have people that were struggling and with things still looking out for me.
yeah, it's great. Like, especially when you have people around that support you and acknowledge that this isn't the life you want to live. Having that support group to keep you away from things. Like when I was younger, same thing. It kept me away from that for a long time. I mean, I got into it later in high school, but during sports seasons, I was always like, I can't do it right now. Like I'm in sports and everything like that. And then I didn't have the friends to say, don't do that. You have things you want to do. But
Yep. There was a couple people that just knew that I was totally against it. Had grown up with some stuff that was like, just, it didn't align with who I was. So I was like, and just having one-on-one conversations when other people are sober. And then when they're not and they're struggling and somebody new walks in and they're like, oh, dude, here, like, come in this circle, like, come over here, like, come into the bathroom. And they'd be like, nah, man, Nick's like straight. He's straight edge. Like, don't, he's got stuff. And I'd be
yeah,
like, man, so do you.
yeah.
So, but yeah, so I basically, yeah, then got to college.
Okay. And so one thing I think sports, especially when you're younger, it gives you a little bit of structure, especially like having family life where the mom has to work all the time and there's a single mom. I feel like it's a really good outlet for kids and a place for them to go and feel safe and have companionship and everything like that. Did you feel that having your sports?
Yeah, it's a great outlet. It allows you, for me, I think it takes you in another world. And I think people on the outside watching don't understand that. But when you're like running around playing, even if it's just tag, like it's just about not getting tagged. Like, it's just about scoring the next point. It's about stopping the next person. You're not thinking about what's for dinner tonight, like what time's my mom picking me up. A lot of times it's like, I hope she doesn't come. Like, this is so much fun. So as a child, I think when you're put in that atmosphere, you just create these worlds. I mean, I just remember being a kid and, playing with toys, and it's larger than life when you're in it. Like in your head, you're just imagining all these things, and it's just time flies. So I think for me, it was a lot of, instead of getting into bad things, I was so focused on just playing and having
Yeah.
fun that the outlet of sports was that for me.
Yeah, and I feel like it goes in as you become an adult as well. Like say when you're in a CrossFit competition, like when you're in that workout, you're not thinking about anything else. You're not worried about the mortgage. You're not worried about what time you have a dentist appointment. It's like finish this and get through it, and it's just a nice little escape, kind of almost.
That's why I used to always tell people, because I actually don't, I owned two gyms. They're both sold now.
Okay.
I just sold the last one in August, but when I would go into the gym, there's people that would join and, like maybe they're trying to sell supplements, they're doing, direct sales of something, or there's everybody's selling something. And I don't mean that in the sense of you're selling a product, but you're selling yourself. You're selling something, right? You want someone to like you. You got to it's a sales pitch, your introduction, how you talk to them. So what I would tell people when they come into a gym is like, don't sell anything. We've all got something to sell. This is an oasis. Like this is the place that you go so that you're not thinking about what's on the outside. It's just like, I've got this workout in front of me. I've got this thing I've got to do. And when you're doing it, it's like everything else just slows down and shuts down, and you're just in this moment. And when you leave, you got to go back to it. But right now, like it's not time to think about what somebody else wants. This is purely for you. So I would always tell people, if you don't want this to be your oasis, don't walk in the door. Like this is like a happy place for people to get away from all that stuff, to get away from somebody calling them a spammer or an email popping in, or somebody asking for something. It's like, no, this is 100% for you. So people got the picture real quick. Like if you're going to sell, you sell outside the walls. You don't sell
Yep.
inside the walls. I didn't even sell. Everything was included. There was
Yep.
no additional fee for anything. I didn't push programming. I'm like, you have a gym with programming. You don't do my stuff. You ask me and I'll give you something. Like
Yep.
it's all included. You have me unlimited. So that's how I approached it. Was I'm not even going to sell you on additional stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a great environment to start out there, especially, making it like their safe place they can come because a lot of people use that gym as a coping mechanism and that's how they get away from life and that's how they deal and process emotions. It's like they don't want to go there and be bothered by, let's sell this, let's set up a meeting. It's like, you want to do that, do it outside. That's a great place to go.
Yep.
So then you're in college football, and I don't know if I'm not 100% sure on your back injury when you had that. Did that happen in football or how did that come?
Well, it was twice.
Yeah.
So what you're referring to is, yeah, I broke. So fractured my L5. I did it in high school first time, and it wasn't football. It was at a concert. Football season ended my senior year, and we all like went out to Chicago, and basically it was a mosh pit, of course.
Yeah.
And I'm in the mosh pit, and one of my buddies spears me. Like, so basically what that means is I'm facing a completely different direction in the mosh pit, and he's on the side, and my back is to him, and he just runs and just hits me in the back. And crazy. Like what's really crazy is I didn't even know for a while. It was just like I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And I'm very much, I don't want to say like I deal with pain well. I'm like, I'll get over it. Like
Yeah.
it's going to deal with it. And then fast forward to college, I was 20. So I was probably 18 then. So I was 21 now. Kind of had some stuff off and on with it, but nothing that I took off as like matters, right? I'm invincible.
Yeah.
So 21, we were off season. I think it was I don't even remember what year. But off season, we're squatting for back squatting. And I was always one of those where like in the gym, like I'm gonna work harder than everybody. And it was a squat as many times as you possibly can, like 80 or 90% of your max. And I think it was between, I wish I could make it up and make it really, really crazy.
Yeah.
Truth, it was between 420, it was over 400, but I want to say it was 425. I always say sometimes 475, but I feel like that's an exaggeration. So we're just going to go with 425. And it was just max reps until failure.
Yeah.
Whereas what do most people do? You tell someone to go to failure and they go to the rep before they think they fail. So they
Yeah.
rack. Well, no, I'm like, you said failure, so like I can't stand back up. So what ended up happening is somebody had taken out the catchers. So I didn't have a squat or a spotter. I would just I knew I had these catchers, so I could just drop down and I'm done. Well, on the rep that I failed, I just dropped down and there was nothing to stop me. So I completely just relaxed and then it just crushed me.
Okay.
I remember we had to do some other stuff and a buddy was like we had like planks with a plate in our backs. And I was just on the ground and it was like, that was it. I was done. So they thought like, oh, I'm like, dude, don't tell, something's wrong. I'm like, something's wrong. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but something's wrong. And I was laying on the ground and I was like, do not put a plate on my back. Don't do anything. I didn't say anything. But all I knew was the next day you had to be in therapy, like physical therapy, like in the trainer's office by like 4 a.m. or you were considered healthy. And we had like spring ball or something like that next day. So I basically was like, guys, you need to help me get to the trainer's office by 4 a.m. And I got in there and I was like, something's not right. And it took 3 weeks until finally I remember my strength coach was like, dude, come on, man, you're milking it. And I'm like, I can't move. Like, I don't know. And they were like, well, go back. And they're like, we need to get you x-rays. And they got me x-rays and they're like, that you re-broke the exact same spot that you did before. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah. So it was just like, dang. So my coach was like, I'm so sorry. I was trying to like push you back into it. But I was like, ah. And then that right there steamrolled me into like what I'm doing now. I said I would never ever do in my entire life once that happened. I said I'd never squat or lift more than 225 pounds
Yeah.
when I finished football in college.
Okay. And what was that recovery process like? Did that end? Is that how your college career ended, or did you?
No, that was going into my senior year, I think. So
Okay.
that would be my junior, so I was going to my senior year, and no, it was just like it was just never right. Because again,
Yeah.
this was like off season just happened, so I was able to like play, but it'd be like randomly, it would just like lock up and I'd like fall, and I'd be like I can't move, and I couldn't like it'd be like a month once the season ended. Like I got through, but it kind of got progressively worse. So I got checked out. They're like, you have rheumatoid arthritis. Like this is going to get really bad as you get older. And I was like, dang. So I just decided like, all right, I'm going to get healthier. And I was maybe 205, 210 when that happened. And I lost a lot of weight because I just stopped lifting, which is kind of what happens during season. But when season ended, it was like I got super lean in the sense of like got a lot smaller, and I was like, I'm never lifting again.
Yeah.
Done. And I signed up for a half marathon when football ended, and
Oh, nice.
I never ran, but
Yeah.
I was like, I can't do this anymore, like my back. But I would run, and I'd run for 3 months and be okay, and then I'd have 3 weeks where I couldn't do anything. And this lasted to where like I probably got x-rays 3 or 4 different times until I was 25. Just like checking, like, did I do it again?
Yeah.
So bad. So my wife would always be like, dang, like I'd hop over something and just fall. And she's
Yeah.
like, are you okay? I'm like, I think I did it again. Like every time I did anything, I thought I broke my back. So, um, but yeah, it was, and then I ran probably 10 half marathons, got
Okay.
down to 165 pounds, and I moved to Indy. My wife, we just got married, and a friend of mine was like, dude, you're not a runner. He's like, you're an athlete. And I was like, dude, what am I gonna do? What is there to do?
Yeah.
Like the only thing I can do is sign up and run a race and race against these small guys. Because people would be like, how are you so big and running so fast? And I'm like, I don't know any different. How are you so small and not running faster? What kind of a question? Like, it
You're like,
doesn't make
get in
sense.
that higher gear. Come on.
Yeah, I was like, this is the smallest I've ever been. But basically my buddy was like, dude, you need to check this thing called CrossFit. And I was like, what? He's like, dude, just check it out. And I didn't. I thought it was like aerobics.
Yeah.
And he ended up bringing over a video like maybe a couple months later. He's like, dude, you gotta look at it. And it was the 2008 Every Second Counts of the CrossFit Games. It was like the documentary.
Oh, okay.
And I watched it and I was like, this is real. And what people don't understand is the winner got 2,500 bucks.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was just like an outlet. Like, wait, I can do this. And I remember when I started looking into it, the first thing I did was like, what, how do you start CrossFit? And it was like, do Fran.
Yeah.
And I saw the workout and it was like, the best times are like 2.5 minutes. I'm like, you can do that in 2.5 minutes.
That's easy. Come
Oh,
on.
let's go. So I went in my basement and I did it. And it was like 6 minutes and 47 seconds. And I crawled up the stairs and I looked at my wife and she was pregnant at the time. And I was like, this is legit. I've
Yeah.
never felt like that my entire life. I'm all in. And she was like, what? You look bad. Like,
You look like you're dying, and you're like, no, I
and,
swear. It
and
felt
then
great.
that's when I really started looking into it more. And I realized what you had to be able to like lift, which it wasn't about lifting back then. And I was like, dang, I gotta like squat and
Yeah.
do all the things I said I would never do. And I still had back problems. So basically what I did was, all right, what would be the bet? Like, again, me just like, I didn't ask anybody. I was like, well, what could fix a back that is having issues? And I was like, make it stronger. And I was like, all right, what is the number one thing to make a back really, really strong? Deadlift. All right. I realized I didn't know how to deadlift. So I basically just put myself on a starting strength program. What I did was, all right, I don't know how to lift. I don't know how to deadlift well. We didn't do that in college, like in football. We didn't deadlift. My back squat was bigger than my deadlift.
Yeah.
So I basically just went down to where I felt like I could kind of move well, and I would just do a 5x5. And every Tuesday, I would come in and I would do a 5x5 with the goal of improving my technique, lifting like I always say in people, like it's a lot different to do a 2 rep or a 5 rep or a 10 rep as compared to a 1 rep. Most people don't know how to lift or pull for a 1 rep. They
Yeah.
just if they do one, they can do two. Like because they don't there's a difference. And I had to learn how to pull for a 1 by doing multiple reps. So what I would do is every Tuesday I would increase 5 or 10 pounds every single week. And I did this for a year and a half. And I started with about a 315 deadlift, like where I was like, I can pull this and I can't pull anything else.
Yeah.
To where I failed 440 and I got it for 4. Missed it on
Okay.
the 5th rep. And I remember I was pissed.
Yeah.
But then I looked back and I was like, wait a minute, I haven't had back pain in 8 months. Like I forgot about it. I've just been focused on this progression of developing. And then I was like, I wonder if I can pull 500, and I pulled 505.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, dang, I never thought I could be able to lift that much. And then I went back and I got x-rays on my back and they're like, we don't see any arthritis. Looks good. We don't see anything. And I had changed my eating. I changed all those other things. I've not, that was at that point, I was 27, 26, 27.
Okay.
And I've never had an issue again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I always talk to people when there are people that have injuries, Rick injuries and stuff like that. I'm like, it sounds weird. You just got to get stronger. Like that's the best way to prevent these injuries and to help things like that from happening is strengthening things around it. But
Yep, that's why for me, when somebody comes in, because everybody comes into a gym and has an issue, right? I got, my this and that. It's like, yeah, we all have that. And you're gonna have to work through it. But what I think people misunderstand that is they say, okay, if I work through it, that means I'm never gonna have to, it's never gonna pop up again. What the truth is that if you have an issue and you feel it every day, our goal is to make you feel it every other day.
yeah.
And then every third day, and then every fourth day, and then every fifth day. And if we're feeling it, 1 hour a day every 24 hours, and we start feeling it 2 hours a day, 3 hours, and we go backwards, we need to reassess what we're doing. So for me, a lot of it it's not about getting rid of something. It's about improving where we are and with the goal eventually getting rid of it and fixing it completely, but ultimately knowing our goal is to improve where we are. And that's one day at a time, one feeling at a time. So for me, like I knew my back wasn't going to get better in a moment, but it was like I'd have an issue every week, then it was every 2 weeks, then it was every 3 weeks, then it was once a month, then it was once every 3 months. And then eventually I stopped waiting for an issue and I realized I'm not having it anymore.
Yeah.
But you have to work through all that and come back and then work through it and then come back and then work through it and come back. So
Yeah. Multiple people I've talked to on here about different things, especially not physically, because this year, one of my first kind of athletes, but we talk about trusting the process, whether that's mentally or physically. It's like, it doesn't happen overnight with these things. Like it's the process and you have to trust it and you have to work through it and get to these points. Right.
yep. Yeah, that's why I think belief is the number one thing. I think a lot of times people will be like, "Oh yeah, I trust you," but no, you have to believe. It's like when somebody says, I want one day to deadlift 500 pounds." That's way different than me saying, "I will deadlift 500 pounds."
Yeah.
That saying like, "Oh man, I hope you're right. I hope you're right." It's like, no, I'm following you because I believe that what you're doing is going to get me where I want to go. Because I think a lot of times we say, "Oh, trust the process and I'll get you to X." Well, the truth is I can't promise you that I can get you to X. What I can promise you is that if you do what I say and you believe what I'm saying, I'm going to get you really freaking far. And I don't choose when the results come. You don't choose when the results come, but we can choose that every day we work towards something, and those actions will guarantee some form of result in the direction that we're going.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they keep that internal dialogue as this is going to happen, I'm going to do it, not getting stressed. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe this process, if you're not believing in it, then it makes it 10 times harder that you're ever going to get there.
Yeah, you have to believe it, you have to speak it. I mean, they always say like fake it till you make it. It's not fake it till you make it. It's you become the person and you become the actions, you become the result way before you ever get it. Like I always like there are people that come in, and the best example that I can say, especially in relation to the gym and like as an athlete, I went a year and a half. So I used to like I'm known for like weightlifting and Olympic lifting and like just being like strong, and people think I'm just giant guy. I was like, I'm 5'10", 190, 195 pounds. I'm not that. I look 6'3", 225 online, I guess,
You
but
do look huge. Like,
no, I'm not. Um, so I got some funny stories about that, but basically what I would tell people all the time is they're like, "Man, you're just, yeah, but like genetics and blah, 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 and all this stuff." I'm like, cool. Let's say yes to all of that. Awesome. Here's what I'll tell you. I snatched before 2012. It was regionals and they had a max snatch, and I hit 265 in practice. I hit 255 out on the floor. Never again for a year and a half hit 255 pounds. So 2012, never hit 255 pounds. But every single week, I worked on it and I worked on it and I worked on it and I worked on it. And 265 was my PR. Never even hit 255. I walked into the gym one day, a year and a half later. Where most people fail is they think they walked in being a person who can't snatch 265 and only can do X. And then I hit 265 that day.
yeah,
And what most people think is like, yes, I'm now stronger. No, you walked into the gym that person. You just didn't have the right moment to showcase your strength.
yeah,
You can, whatever you want to say. Well, then I hit 270 that same day. And I'm a person that says, if you PR, you have so little of them, just enjoy it today. And the next week I hit 275. And the next week I hit 280. And the next week I hit 285. And the next week I hit 290. And the next week I hit 295. And then I failed 300. 265 now never was a question in my head. But 6 weeks earlier, I thought 255 was never going to happen.
yeah.
So what I say to people is, do you know when I could snatch 295? Do you think it was that day? Do you think it was 6 weeks ago? It was probably 6 months ago.
Yeah.
you never know when the results show up. It's your job to step in, do the work. And if you keep doing it, they're going to pop up. You just don't get to decide how much, when. So like, that's how I think a lot of times they always said the joke of like with the guy that he was digging for gold and he was like 3 feet away, but he quit early and somebody came behind him and just boop, found the gold.
Right away. Yeah.
A lot of times we already have the gold. We already have it. We just aren't patient enough to wait. Like let
Yeah.
it mature. So for me, I think a lot of times we get caught up too much in that the results decide who we are, but it's the actions that make the results. And once you hit 295, you're already a lifter.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're
You already
already
have it.
yeah, you're already that person.
Yeah.
So we become the person way before we ever get the accolades of that person.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree there. And
That
I
was a
think
tangent.
that, no, it's fine. I had the same, I always had, um, something when I was benching, like, cause I had football and everything like that. And so every time I hit a plate, like it was the 135, the 225, the 315, like every time I got to there, that was a like mental barrier for me. And I wouldn't be able to hit it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And then I'd come in and all of a sudden I'd hit it and I'd rep it 3 times. I'm like, what? Why? I obviously had it this
Yeah.
months ago, but all of a sudden you hit it and it's like, oh wow, there it is. And then before you know it, it's 30 pounds up. And it's always like, what was that barrier? Why was I not getting that? Like obviously I had it, but and
Yeah.
I think you're
That's
right.
why,
It's like
yeah. Yep.
so then you're getting in that 5x5, and then you said you had done the CrossFit workout. What when did you find a box, or like how did you finally get into competing in CrossFit?
So I would say so I was working full-time job.
Yeah.
My daughter was born, so I started CrossFit in like December of 2008, 9. It was like when I would say like I started it. My daughter was born January 2010. So a month later she was born. And my wife stayed home. So I was working about 45 minutes away and I was a manager at AT&T and I was working from 9 to like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So what I would do is I would wake up in the morning and I'd go in my basement and I would basically just get really tired because
Yeah.
that's what CrossFit was. To me, CrossFit was like never stop. Then I'd go and I shaved my head because I wanted to be able to work out and not have to worry about like looking disgusting. So I could just like put stuff on me and never have to shower. So I'd like go to a park or go into a gym, but I wouldn't even eat. I would just go and work out for an hour and I'd go back to work and I would just snack in the back, like in the break room. And then after work, I would go home and I'd work out until my wife got mad at me. And I would just do that every single day until there was so if you're familiar at all with CrossFit, there was open is now like the format, but it
Yeah.
used to be sectionals. So you would basically signed up and there was like a ton of sectionals all over and you'd sign up to go and compete and it was like unlimited spots. So I signed up and it was at the Arnold Classic. It was 2010 and they right before it started, they announced that they were upping the prize money for the CrossFit Games to $25,000 for the winner. Who was
So
like,
crazy.
you're gonna be rich now.
Mm.
So I signed up. There was 183 people that signed up for sectionals, and the top 20 went to regionals. And there was three um, sectionals that basically comprised of one regional, so you have 60 men.
No.
Well, I went and I was like, all right. They posted like workouts like the week before, and it was like rowing, which I'd never rowed. It was toes to bar, which in my head I was like, I think I get it.
Yeah.
There was, like chest to bar, which I was like, I mean, that's got to be like your chest has got to do something on the bar. And there was like deadlifts and burpees with a weight vest, other stuff. So I basically contacted like there's two gyms. One of them didn't answer, and the other one answered, and they were like a jujitsu and CrossFit. And I was like, hey, I just need to check out your stuff. Like I gotta see. So they let me come in. I walked in. I was like, all right, where's the rower? And I get on. I was like, okay. I pulled a little bit. I was like, that's it. They're like, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. Is this a toe to bar? And I jumped up and I just like touched my toe to the bar. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, cool. Uh, and they're like, I got it. Like I'm out. Like I left. I went to I went
You're
to
like, I've got it
Columbus.
down. I'm nailed it. I'm ready to go. Let's compete here.
So I went to Columbus. The first workout was deadlift. It was 5 rounds of 7 deadlifts at 225, wearing a 20-pound weight vest and 11 burpees. And I remember I was like, this is so heavy. Oh my gosh. I didn't do horrible, but I didn't do well. And the next event was a 500-meter row and like 15 toes to bar, 500-meter row, 15 overhead squats for like 2 rounds. And I remember standing, the workout started and I wasn't in the first heat, and I'm standing back and there's a guy to my left and there's a guy to my right, and we're just like watching. And I'm watching this person row. And I'm like, it was saying like 130 something. And I'm like, hey, is that number normal that you see? Because I remember I was like, I didn't see anything under a 2. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. So, and the guy on my left looks at me and kind of just like, not even gonna acknowledge you. And I looked at the guy on my right, I was like, hey, have you ever seen this before? And he was like, oh yeah. I was like, what's good? Like, what am I supposed to do? And this guy was like super nice, and this guy over here. So it was like a movie almost where I'm like, hey, look. Then they get off and they go to the bar and they start doing toes to bar. And I'm like, dude, they're cheating. That's not what you do.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, they're all cheating. These are all cheaters. How are they doing this? I had to do singles on the freaking. I'm like, this kipping thing, this is a joke. This is stupid. This isn't even right. So it turns out like this guy on my left ended up getting second overall. And the guy
Oh.
over here, like he ended up making it, but he was like 15th. All said and done, I ended up getting 33rd. And Dan Bailey won the regional that year. It was his first year too. And then there was a bunch of other guys, but I remember I walked out and I was like, I was with my wife's dad. He was like big bodybuilder, wanted to go to Arnold and loved it. And I remember I sat down and he was just like, oh my gosh, that one guy was this. And he's like going on about all these people. And I remember I was getting heated. I
Yeah.
was getting so mad because I was like, I don't cuss, and I don't know if you can cuss on this, but
Oh, you can cuss. Yeah.
I was like, fuck that.
Yeah.
I was like, and I looked at him and I was like, I'm gonna beat them all next year. And he was like, well, but do you know that one guy? And I was like, mm-mm.
Yeah. I don't care.
I was like, I'm gonna beat them all next year.
Yeah.
And
And
and so that
no,
was
but
feel
sorry, 30, yeah, 33rd though, for not having those movements down and never doing them is still a solid performance for doing singles and stuff like that. And I'm like, really, your first comp where you haven't done these movements and not able to string them together and not get that rowing down, that's not too bad. But I could see the mentality. I'd have that same thing of like, nah, that's not fucking good enough. Like when I
I mean,
come back,
I had a good base, and obviously I was doing endurance stuff, so like the long stuff, and like I actually was. It's funny because I was good. So then we get to basically I went then and I competed um at an event in January of 2011. So now we're going in, and this is when the first open gets announced, and this is when they up the prize money to 250,000 for the winner.
yeah,
So I go and I sign up for this event. It was down in Indianapolis, and I see a guy signs up. I'm like, I recognize that name. And it was the guy that got seventh and almost made the games. And I was like, oh, I said I was going to beat all these guys. It means I got to beat this guy. He crushed me. I looked up his scores from the year before. I was like, dang, this dude's good.
yeah,
So I go and I win. And I remember people were like, you're gonna make the games. Like and I was like, oh, no way. Like, but like I truly it wasn't about the games. It was just like, I just want to go and beat these people. Well, what happens if you beat everybody? You go.
you go.
So like, and because it's not about how good you are, it's about how good you perform against everybody else and how good they are. It's just you could be bad in a bad sport and be the best. You could be fantastic in a fantastic sport and be the worst. Like you can list however you want, but I win. I end up going, Reebok was going to do the next year. They did this like event with Reebok where Reebok was going to sponsor the person who wins Fran. And I had done Fran in 2:10, 2 minutes and 10 seconds, which Fran is 21:59 of thrusters and pull-ups.
Yeah,
And I did it in 2:10 in practice. And I told my wife, I was like this is when Froning Froning had gotten second the year before. He was there, like basically every big name was there.
yeah,
And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna do this. Well, my wife was like, all right, well, let's go. So we went. I competed and did some dumb stuff the day before we did this event. Got a rhabdo, if you
Oh,
don't, because
yeah.
I was like all in on it. Tried to did Fran in like 3:08, which was not good.
Yeah.
Uh, and not for what I wanted. And the guy that won it was the guy that I had beat in the competition, and he got signed by Reebok,
Oh, that's
which
rough.
was 2 months later. So my wife then, of course, my wife is very nice, and she says, "I don't believe you. I don't think you can do this in 2 minutes and 10 seconds. I just watched you." And I was like, I couldn't, my arms won't even straighten. Like I can't even.
Yeah.
So this was 2 weeks before the Open started. The Open started on a Sunday or on like a Friday. I'm not sure when it was back then. On Saturday, she was like, "I don't believe you. Again, I don't believe you." And I said, "Let's go to the gym right now, and I'm gonna do this workout. I'm gonna prove I can."
Yeah.
We were in the gym, and I did Fran, and I was on pace for a 2:08. And on the last pull up, I fell off the bar and broke my collarbone.
Oh, that's brutal.
I couldn't even hang on. It's called Unfinished Fran on YouTube.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you hear the snap and everything. It's on video.
Yeah. Oh,
It's the last pull up. I didn't even finish it. That's why it's called. It was the
the
ninth
very
rep.
last. Yeah, that's as close as you can get on there, but
Fell, broke my collarbone. Open starts the next week.
oh,
So I'm like, my season's done.
yeah.
All right, this is stuff I've said it one other time before, and I'll try to make it quick. My wife was like, "You can't compete. Don't even try." So I didn't. Well, there was a glitch in the system, and they extended the Open another week. So I did the first workout one armed. It was power snatches at 75 pounds and double unders. So I
Okay.
put my arm like this, and I did all the snatches one arm. I was able to hold my arm straight and spin with the other arm. And I got like 7.5 rounds, which everybody was like, I beat everybody in that gym by like 2 rounds with one arm.
Yeah.
Then the next workout had like hand release push-ups, which like I couldn't do a regular push-up, but I could do a hand release push-up. Weird. So I do okay, but every week that the workout came out, it was like I could just then do the movement. It was like
Yeah.
squat, clean, and jerks, and I could just go overhead that day. And it was like I got all these workouts, and because of that extended week, you had to be top 60, and I qualified barely. I was like 56th.
Yeah.
So I make it to regionals.
Okay.
I'm in the first heat. No one knows who I am except this one guy I competed with who got like third. So he qualified. He's in the final heat. And at this point, this is like 3 or 4 months later. So like my collarbone's still like not perfect, but like pretty good at this point. And I'm like, all right, somehow I got through. And what people don't know is that not only did they extend it out a week, but I did the math, and that first workout using my one arm wasn't good enough, and I knew I could do better, and my shoulder was better like a week later, like feeling better. And they accidentally allowed you to keep inputting your scores. So I redid the workout with two arms and got like another round, and that's why I qualified. Only
Oh,
because with like 2 hours left, it was still letting me put in my times. And I was like, how come I can still put in workouts? Maybe I'll do it again and see. Like,
yeah.
and I did,
Nice.
and I got in.
Okay.
Only because the system was broken and it let me do the first workout, like which is 6 weeks later.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it would be. That that is a crazy coincidence. You're like, well, I mean, maybe I'm supposed to go here.
Yeah. So it was like 7 weeks after, because they extended another week, that I redid it and put that score in.
Yeah.
And that's how I qualified barely.
Okay.
But I got a world record on the first event. And it was a running, rowing, handstand push-up event. It was like 1,000-meter run, 30 handstand push-ups, 1,000-meter row. And I got the world record. And everybody was like, who is this guy? What the heck? And I was like, that's right. And I got third and qualified for the games
Okay.
with all of that. So that was the following year when I was like, I'm going to beat everybody. Didn't. I think Dan Bailey got first again or second. And then I was third. And then this guy, Joseph Weigel. But
Oh.
yeah. So anyway.
So
Yeah.
is this about the time that you decided to, is this when you're like, I'm all in on CrossFit or did
That was
that?
2009. That was when I
Okay.
decided to fix my back. When I
Oh,
decided
okay.
I was all in was when I was like, I got to fix my back. That was 2009. 2011, I made the games
Okay.
first time.
Yeah. So that process of, I was going to talk about that, the going all in on yourself, because you say, I bet on myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a hard thing to do. Like mentally breaking that down. What was your process like? Are you like, I'm writing down pros and cons? Or are you just in your head, you're like, no, this is what I need to do. This is, and I'm going to make it. Or,
Um, I think that's different because I think sometimes people go all in on themselves and they don't know they are. And what I mean by that is that CrossFit at that time and still now, if somebody said, I'm going to make the games, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to train all day, almost everybody's going to be like, are you sure?
yeah,
Like, and it's a lot different now. Back then, people didn't even know what that was. Like, first off, what is CrossFit? What is the games? Why do you even care? Like, you've got to, I'm married. I've got a baby. I just bought a house and I'm like, I'm going to go compete. And they're like, for what? And I'm like, CrossFit. They're like, what is that? And I'm like,
what?
I can win $2,500. And they're like, you're spending all your time doing this. And every single person, I mean, my dad, which he was out of my life for a while, then he came back and he was just like, I think this is stupid. I think you have to do what's best for blah, blah, blah. And all the things that people said was like, you're, what I learned was there are haters, right? There are people online, there's trolls, or people who are going to tell you like, oh, because like I hate you, but you're like, you don't even know me.
Yeah.
The scariest people are those that know you and are actually trying to help you. And by saying, like him saying, I don't think you should do this, you got all these other things, is him saying, I would never do that because I would have all these things, like that'd be too scary. I'm not you. So you have to like realize that the scariest people in your lives are the ones closest to you, trying to give you advice that is actually stuff that they're like, this is what I would do.
Yeah.
And the betting on myself is saying, I get what you would do, but I'm not you. And I can't not do this. Like I can't not. I don't care. I don't need anything. I don't need to gain anything from this. This is me living my best life. This is me chasing after something that like I don't know why I'm chasing it, but I can't help but chase it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like when I say like betting on myself, it was like everybody was telling me what to do, and it was like I can't do anything else.
Yeah. Was that, I mean, that's got to be, were you a little bit nervous about it and scared? Kind of like, did you ever have the doubt of, what if it doesn't go somewhere? What if it, or was it kind of like, no, I'm going to make it go somewhere kind of thing?
I mean, I don't think I ever thought that far,
Okay.
honestly, because I was working. My wife was staying home. I had a daughter. I was working a lot to make sure that we had what we needed, and I was still training. I was working out. I mean, literally, I was working 60 to 70 hours a week, and I was training 3 to 5 hours a day. So when people are like, I don't have any time, I'm like, I asked for a key to a gym so I can go in at 4 a.m. and just literally pull a rope down and just climb it and climb it and climb it and climb it because I didn't know how to climb a rope and
Yeah.
just climb it and climb it and climb it. And then I would go to work. And then I'd go to lunch and pretend like I was eating, and my employees didn't even know what I was doing. And then I'd come home and I, when she'd go to sleep, I'd be like, I'm gonna go in the basement. Like I can't, I gotta do something. I gotta go I gotta get better. I gotta get better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I never thought any different. What I do know is when I was young, I was very into finances, very much into setting yourself up. And I knew I wasn't overextending myself. I wasn't doing anything like stupid with money. I wasn't going into debt. I wasn't doing stuff. I was taking care of the things I had to take care of while doing what I wanted to do. And I was like, I'm not being irresponsible. I'm just so passionate that I can't not do this.
Yeah. And was your wife supportive of all that throughout that? Or was she, at sometimes
Yeah,
was she like,
she was very much like I think she was at a point like he can't not do this. But we would have arguments where I'd be like on the stairs like, are you just telling me I need to quit? Like I just need to stop? Like it would be very much like I just get so defensive of like, you want more of me, but this like I can't be my best without doing these things. Like I'm giving you everything that I can while doing all these other things. I'm like, I see there's this light. If you can just trust me, I know there's more. Like I know, like just trust me. And I'd like lay out plans of like, this is how we can do it. And I think the hardest part for her was like I made the games pretty early in 2011, and then I missed it in 2012 by one spot. The final workout I had to win, and I didn't.
Yeah.
2013, I missed it. 2014, I missed it. And in 2014, she basically was like, "All right, we can't keep doing this. Like you're spending your entire life is around doing this, and you're failing. Like you're not doing it." And she kind of said it without saying it, but like this is it. This is your last shot. If you don't make it this year, you're done. And I was like, all right, well, because I didn't have very balanced doesn't exist in my world, basically.
Yeah.
And what we basically said was like, all right, I asked her, like, what do you need from me? And we created 5 hours a day, 5 days a week that I could do whatever I wanted with. And that was my training time. So I knew that if I did something else with that time, I lost it. So we just created this like, all right, if you can have these windows, but after that, I need you. So boom, had 5 hours and made the games in 2015. And then that's kind of what really catapulted me, I would say, at that point. But we stuck with that of just like, all right, I have to like, I can't, because a lot of times I would like feel like I was training all the time, but a lot of times I was thinking and like preparing and getting ready, and I'd waste a lot of time.
Yeah.
So I stopped wasting time. I got a lot better with my time. So yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask on that, like, when you evaluate what you're doing and how to get to there, like, I look back because I won't say I participated in CrossFit. I'm talking to a guy like you. I'm like, I didn't compete, I participated. But I look back at my training regimen and I look at all the mistakes I had made when I was doing it. Like, I'm programming for myself, I'm eating like shit. Sometimes I'm drinking 3, 4 times a week. I'm working 50 hours of carpet. And it's like, I didn't ever actually sit down and evaluate, like, and put structure to it and make a plan. And I'm like, is that kind of, would that be your best advice for somebody young getting into either CrossFit or a sport? It's like, would your best advice be what on that?
Best advice for somebody getting into sport. Um, I mean, you're never too good for the basics. Um, it's like this, shooting 1,000 shots every single day, doing all that stuff. And then the cool thing about a lot of like most things is it's about data. So like if I shoot 1,000 shots and I make 400, my goal tomorrow is to shoot 1,000 shots and make 401, and then 402. So I would tell people like when they're starting, like if they're working on something, like example, like for me, it was transfer of movement is what I called it. And what you have to do is test so much stuff that you understand what makes so much more better. What I mean by that is a lot of times somebody new focuses on one thing to get that one thing better, but then they have to do 1,000 things to get those 1,000 things better. I say, what's one thing I can do to make 100 things better? And if I can do that, I just saved 100 times my time. So now I can then take that time and find one thing that makes 100 things better. And if I find 10 things that make 1,000 things better, I'm exponentially improving. So what I learned real quick was legless rope climbs, pegboards made all my pulling better. My ring muscle ups, my bar muscle ups, and my pull ups. So I stopped doing pull ups other than like in a workout, open workout, or testing. And I would just do pegboards and legless rope climbs all the time. And those, though, make so many other things better. And it's the little things of like when I say like you're never too good for the basics, you always have to ask yourself, what's something I'm doing that I could be doing better? An example for me was like I would watch people. So a lot of times the biggest secrets you can find are when no one else is knowing that that person you want to learn from is watching. So like if you want to learn from somebody, watch them when they don't think anybody's watching. So a great example of that would be in two. One, we were in a competition and it was legless rope climbs and I was horrible at them. And I would pull like this and I would climb like hand over hand because when I'd get fatigued, especially. And I remember I was doing an event and I was watching, it was Garrett Fisher, which this is like 2014 or 15, I don't remember. And he was climbing, and his reach was like 2 feet with his right arm. And then his left arm was short. And then it was like huge reach. And it only took him like 3 pulls. And I was like, dang, that's cool. What most people would say, like, I wish I could do that. What I said was, I'm going home so I can do that. I'm going home, and I'm now no longer allowed to put my hand over my hand. I'm not allowed to do that. I have to reach as high as I possibly can every single time. And within 6 months, my pulls all of a sudden on both hands are now way over. Not because I did anything different other than to say I'm no longer doing what I did. I'm now going to change how I do this. Then I'm at Wadapalooza, and I remember Alex Smith was a gymnast, and he's somebody, so you're like, okay, he's probably got some secrets that he's not going to tell anybody.
Yeah.
He didn't do any, again, this is a legless rope climb thing, because the same, it was like we were doing legless rope climbs in a workout, and it was, I don't even remember what year it was, but everybody left except him. So everybody's leaving to go like get ready for some stuff, like after our warm up, and he stayed back. And I remember I just walked away and I'm like watching from like a spot to where I'm like, I want to see him climb. And he climbed, and he's the first person that ever free fell from a rope.
Oh,
And I was like, what was that? And I was like, I'm doing that now. Because the secret to really improving is being steps ahead of where everybody else is. It's harder to do that now with social media and with the value, like the amount of coaching that can be done. But that's like Froning was always 10 steps ahead of everybody in his training and his preparation and all that stuff. And it was always like when we would see him do stuff, we would try to mimic it. But by that point, he was already doing the next thing.
yeah.
So I started learning like I need to be steps ahead of everybody else. And how you do that is you find the best at everything and you take best aspects of what they're doing and bring it into your game. So I went home and I was like, how do you learn how to free fall from a rope from the top?
Yeah. You're like, this sounds a little dangerous, but
But I was like, well, you don't learn from the top. You learn just from standing on the ground. So I would just like play with it. And it took me a long time, but I would get up one pole and then practice and practice. And then within a month or 2 months, all of a sudden I'm free falling. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then regionals, they announce a workout and I destroy it because there was only two of us that could do it.
yeah.
It wasn't that I was fitter. It was that I cared more about the details. And that's what I think people misunderstand is it's not about fitness isn't just how much you can deal with. There's so many aspects. If I can move more efficiently, like in a way that you aren't, you can be fitter than me, but I move better.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing for anybody is like pay attention to every little thing. More is not better, but more done well is.
Yeah.
And the secret, the thing I always tell people is most of the time when people come in and they say they want to do something in any sport, they go 100 miles an hour all in and they get hurt, they quit. It's too much. Like there's always a thing, or they end up backing down and being like, yeah, that's not for me. Like I'm going to do something else. You have to earn the right to train the way you see people training.
No.
The number one thing I'll say to people is you haven't trained that hard to train that hard. You have to build up. The truth about training is if you're training and you're beat up and you're destroyed, go home and recover. Because one day, if you do that hard enough and you keep doing it and doing it and doing it, you're going to finish and you're going to be like, I feel like I want to do some more.
Yeah.
That's when you know you've earned the right for more.
Yeah.
It's not about doing 50% 10 of 10 things and being like, I did 10 workouts at 50%. No, give everything you possibly can. And if you've got nothing else to give, go get ready for tomorrow.
Yeah. Recover and come back in.
Yeah, like I could do a workout all out, be on the ground for 10 minutes and get up and in 10 minutes be ready to do it again.
Yeah. And when you were talking about watching people and getting these tricks, I think where you were also talking like doing 1,000 shots and everything like that, it's like you have to have those fundamentals at first. It's like if you don't have that strong base, then tweaking those things aren't really going to help you. But if you watch athletes like you and Froning and Fraser and all, it's like if you watch your basic fundamentals, they're just spot on. It's like as soon as you get that, then you can work on these other tricks. But doing those 10,000 movements or 10,000 reps at one movement are key.
And look at the person who looks that way, who looks amazing, and then video yourself and ask, do I look like that? I'll watch people that have been training for 3 or 4 years and they'll say, I'm going to make the games one day. And I watch them move. And in 10 seconds, I can say, There's so many things that you have to do. Like you can be as fit as you can be fitter than everybody, but there's no way you're going to do it. You move like crap. And I can bet somebody has helped you along the way to move better and you didn't take the help.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
actually how I started following you was um one of my Olympic lifting coach was like my form just wasn't great on the snatch and like that. And he's like, watch Nick here. And he goes, that's how you do it. And I was like, oh damn. And I'm like, I mean, he's like, watch his midline, watch him engage his lats. And I'm like, you got your shirt off so you can see. I'm like, he goes, do that and you'll be okay. And I was like, all right. So then I'd watch your videos and be like, yeah, I'm still not doing that. But
yes, and that it is funny because I never had a coach.
oh really?
I just learned, like I learned through feeling. Like I was like, so that's why it's easy for me to coach it because it's all a feeling. I coach through the feeling.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, feel this? They're like, feel what? And I'm like, Dad, you got to feel it. You have to. You don't know what it's like to engage your lats. How do you expect to engage your lats?
Yeah.
But that's awesome though. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so it was, I mean, that's what, yeah. And so I started watching your videos and everything like that. And I'm like, and it doesn't matter the weight, light, heavy, it's like your setup. He goes, watch him at 135 is the exact same he sets up at 300 pounds on a snatch. Like everything's the process. And he's like, once you can get that down, then you can go and try to hit that 275 snatch. Then you can try to hit the 280. He's like, but until you get that, don't start going to that heavyweight yet. And I was like, okay, it sounds like a
That's
good.
awesome.
So
That's why I always say you have to create as many systems as you can to eliminate any deviations or anything that can mess you up. So like setups, what you think, everything. If you can only make it about one thing, you take away so many variables that can screw you up. So to me, it was always have a process to everything and dial it into such a habit that it's out of the equation. People would never be like, "Is it your setup?" I'd be like, "No, it's not."
yeah,
And if I can get my setup the same every single time and do the right thing, then I know that my issue is going to be small. If my setup changes every time, if there's a little thing that, just approaching the bar is different every single time, then I have to expect a different result each time.
yeah. And then so we were talking about your next qualification you said was 2015, right? When you qualified for the games. At
Yep.
this point, when you're doing that, are you running your box and stuff like that? Like, what are you
Yep.
doing?
Yeah. So in 2011, so my daughter was born in January of 2010. We get to probably around, I think my daughter was 18 months old, and my wife was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah,
I was like, what do you mean you can't do this anymore? She's like, I can't do this anymore. I got to go back to work. I was like, all right. So I was making about $65,000 a year at my job at that time. And she gets a job where she's basically going to make $65,000. So what most people would do is they'd be like, we just doubled our income, right? Yeah, we're going to have daycare and whatnot, but like we doubled our income. Well, not me. I said, well, you've been home for about 2 years with our daughter, and I've been like allowing you to do that, not in like a negative way, but basically like you've been able to do that because that's what you wanted to do, and I'm fully in support of that. Now I want to go and do what I want to do, and I want to open a gym. And I said, we don't have to change anything. I go,
yeah.
because
You're
I'm
like,
not
we already
making
live
money.
on this budget. If we keep the
Like,
same, then
I'm not going to make any money. And I kind of started talking about it. And there was somebody that I was working with strictly on Olympic lifting. This is before I was really good. This is 2000, end of 2011. And she was like, you want to open a gym? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, you're the best I've ever seen at helping it in all aspects. Like, you're unreal. We want to help you. And I was like, what? And it was just a member and his wife. And they basically co-signed on everything. And we're like, all right, we'll back you. You make it the way you want to make it. So I was able to took out a $50,000 loan, bought equipment. They helped make sure like everything was good, signed everything, and then went off and running in
nice.
my first gym in 2000. So we opened our doors in March of 2012. And then I was able to train all the time, slash coach every single class.
Yeah,
For the first 2 years were a blur. And that people were like, how'd you compete at a high level? And I'm like, I don't know, but obviously I didn't make the games in 2012, 2013, 2014. Uh, but I was living out what I wanted to live out. And then it was like 2015, I remember I started doing some other stuff, made the games again. I remember I won the first open workout, like I won the world.
Yeah.
And I went to bed and I had like 7,000 followers on Instagram. And I woke up and I had 17,000. And I was like, what happened? I didn't even know that I won, but
Oh,
they
okay.
had announced it, and like I was number one on the leaderboard for the entire week.
Yeah.
So it was like all of a sudden I had 17,000 people following me on Instagram, whereas I was posting in 2012. Um, I basically made, or 2013. My wife was like, "You need to do this Instagram." I was like, "The double tap stuff. This is stupid. I'm not posting pictures." And my very first post is a picture of me. She took of me eating sushi, and she put like eating sushi with my family, and she's like, "Look, see,
Look how fun this is.
yeah." Well, 2013, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a commitment, and every single day for an entire year, I'm going to post one thing and just see what happens. So I did that, and then after a year, I was like, I'm just going to post every single day. So by the time 2015 hit, it was like I had all this content of stuff. So it wasn't like there wasn't anything there. And then just kind of grew, and I tried a programming company because I started thinking like, I can't do this forever.
Yeah.
And the gym is not going to it's not going to make me crazy wealthy, and I can't do much with it. Like you're kind of stuck. Like the model, you have to change up the model, and that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you can make a living as an individual, but you can't help five people. Like you can't bring four people on full time and yourself and like live a good wage. So I was like, man, I gotta do something. I gotta do something. So I tried an online programming company called New, which was like Nick Urankar programming, and I quit doing it. And then I tried again and stopped. And I was at the games in 2016 on a podcast with Ben Alderman and Blair Morrison.
That
Can't
sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, Blair's awesome. Like anywhere fit. He used to just work out everywhere. Super fit guy. So I'm on the podcast, and it was like uh, they introduced me and they said, "This is Nick Urankar, like strongest guy in CrossFit. If he just had a programming company, he would kill it with strength work." And I was like, I remember they like this is on a podcast, like my introduction, and I'm like, I've already tried. Like I've already tried to do it, and like I didn't do it.
It didn't quite work out.
No, like I quit. Like I had people who would kind of sign up, but like I just let it just go. I remember I went home and I was like, dang, what do they see that I don't see?
Yeah.
I was like, and that's what made me realize, like, I think we all try, guys is a good example. Like, guys try to do everything alone until we figure it out, and then we'll tell people. Like, we do our struggles, our like everything. It's not till like we're really, really great that we'll tell people, like, oh, I was struggling, like this. And they're like, really? And you're like, yeah, but I did it alone inside and took care of it, fixed it. Like, whereas women will like get in groups and pods like they are, and they'll talk about it. Guys, it's like, you're not going to talk about what you're so for me, I was like, dang, I'm trying to do all this stuff alone, but like I thought I would love it. Like everybody's like, oh, I would love to train all day. No, you wouldn't. I'd
Yeah.
love to do, you wouldn't. You would maybe love an aspect of it, but running a business, I was like, dang, it's not just like you get the profits and you get all the cool stuff. I hated inputting stuff. I hated it. So I came home and I was like, I need to figure out something to do because one day when I can't compete, I'm not going to make the money I'm making competing. The gym's probably not going to be like, I don't want it was like all these things started going through my mind. And I'm like, man, I've always cared so much about taking care of my family and financial independence and all these things. And like, I'm scared I won't know when this is going to end. And if it ends, like, what then?
Yeah.
So I walked in the gym and I was like, what are the things that I don't like to do? And what are any of those things something that other people would like? And the number one thing I didn't like to do was to input the workouts, like the tedious, mundane stuff. Like I loved programming, I loved all that, but like going into an app and like this workout here and doing these things and hated it. So I was just standing in the gym when I kind of came to this realization. And there was a guy, Dave, who was there and he was a SWAT officer. And I was like, hey, Dave, I want to start a company. I'm not making any money. I'm not making anything. If I like, do you like computers? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, would you input some stuff for me? And he's like, what do you mean? And I told him, he's like, yeah, I would do that. And I was like, but I'm not making anything. So I'll give you a percentage. I'll give you 15% of whatever I make, but it's nothing right now
Yeah.
of whatever you make. And then you input all the stuff. I'm just going to send it all to you and you do that. And then if you want to post on like Instagram sometimes on like the page. And he's like, why me? And I was like, what do you mean, why you? I'm like, because you're here.
Yeah.
I trust you. You're nice. And he's like, but like, why me? Like, you're me? No one else? And I remember at that point, I was like, dang, like he's feeling honored that I'm asking him, whereas I'm only asking him because I don't want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, it's, it's not like, I'm looking out for you, buddy. I'm just
Yeah.
trying, like, I have nothing, but I feel like I'm going to quit. And that was when Zeus, he's like, what are we going to call it? And I was like, I think Zeus method. Because like Zeus is the strongest god like I can think of. Like,
Yeah.
and I wanted to be like about mainly about strength and how to get stronger and blah blah blah. And that was 2016 after the games, and that was what started Zeus method. And just
Okay.
not having to input is why it survived.
Yeah, and it was having that ability to reach out for help because like I really liked how you brought that up that we don't talk about these things, we don't talk about struggles because that's one of the main concepts that I was getting at on this podcast and why I started it was as especially as men is that we don't talk about a lot of things. We don't, especially struggles and stuff like that. Plus, we're really bad at asking for help with just random stuff. And like doing this stuff actually has gotten me really out of my comfort zone because like asking you or asking somebody else to come on for me, I feel like I'm asking somebody for help that I and asking them to help, and it is hard for me, and that's why I struggled so long with things is that I just kept things inside and I didn't and I never asked for help. I was always like, fuck, I can do this. Whatever it was, no matter what struggle, no matter, even if it was as simple as asking somebody to input for me, I never did it and I never would. And it was
Mm-hmm.
always like, I added so much more to my plate by doing that.
100%. Yeah, it's like I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out.
No.
Yeah. No,
And, so then you start Zeus method and everything like that. So when you're doing that, now you're doing that, you're running the box, you're competing, your dad, husband,
I had my second
with all
child at that point.
second child at that point. Okay.
Yep. So 2013 was my second one. Yeah, have that box. Found out there was a gym that was going to close down, so I was like, I'll just buy it and have another box. So I did that, but I was like, I'm not running it. And I kind of told people like, hey, I'll get this and I'll do all the programming. I'll set up all the stuff. I'll get the coaches. I'll do all things have to be done, but I'm not going to be front facing. I want to see if this can run without me. And a guy was like, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'm like, all right, well, you got to put up some money. You got to do. And it was like, okay, cool. So that was end of 2016. Got a second box, and that didn't work
Yeah.
at all. Kept it for just after COVID,
Okay.
like so 5 years almost.
It didn't
Never,
work, but I had it for 5 years.
yep, never took a penny from it.
No.
I never took a penny. And actually I had to pay to close it. So we liquidated, but I had to pay like $8,000 to $10,000 to just to close it. Like
Yeah.
so I basically lost money the entire time.
No.
And that was 2001, I would say. And in 2019, I kind of went, or 2018, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this programming stuff seriously. Because I really wasn't doing, I was just programming and like posting stuff. And it was like, I was making more money than I was making working, like owning the gym. And I'm like, and I'm not even trying with it. Like I'm competing. I'm spending time with my family. I'm running the gyms. Oh yeah, on the side, I'm like making my money without even like doing anything. Like I'm
Yeah.
just like posting, which is already what I was doing. I'm not even like trying to get people to sign up. I'm not even doing anything. And then 2018, after I made the games and I was 34, so after the games in 2018, like I had my best finish, and my wife's like, "Well, you're done, right?" And I was like, "No, I'm not done. What do you mean am I done?" Because after 2015, when I finally made it, people were like, again, they're like, "Oh, so now you're done." And I'm like, "Why would I work this hard to be done? Like you
Yeah.
guys don't get it. I can't be done. I just can't stop. Like I literally just like I can't stop."
No.
So 2018, I kind of decided like, you know what, I'm gonna go a little bit more all in on the programming stuff and really start to figure out marketing side and like the business side and how I can just all the aspects of business. And then 2019, I got even more into it where I started getting excited about it. And I told my wife, I was like, man, when I'm done competing, I'm probably going to like get obsessed with business. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah, like I'm going to be somewhere. Like something's going to have my mind and get me like super obsessed. And then so decided I'm not competing individually. 2019, my wife's like, go masters. So I went masters and I won. And then 2020, I'm like, all right, well, I might as well just win this again. And I
Might as
qualified.
well. I mean, it's simple enough.
So qualified again. Well, I was only having to do like 4 workouts a day, which is not that hard. And and I and it was like only one of the things I was bad at. I didn't have to lift that much. I didn't have to do anything. I'm 30% stronger than every guy already. Like I don't need that. So I just need to run more and just be crazy conditioned. So I could actually I was getting in better shape because I was just focusing on like just fitness. And then when 2020, I qualified for the games again, and that's when they canceled it. They were like, all right, this is your placement. You're done. And I was like, what? And I had a whole year and a half till the next games. And I remember just being like, what? They just took it right out from under me.
Yeah.
This is it. I've been doing this. This is it. And it was hard. And that's when I realized, number one, I don't own a business in the sense of my gym. I am employed by myself. And if something bad happened, I couldn't sell this. And I would have to just close it. And that was like, whoa. And I'm like, but then I've got this online thing that's probably very similar, but there's no overhead, there's no nothing, and it's grown, triple what it was in a couple years.
Yeah.
So I was like, then and all I was having was issues with like members and stuff. People telling me like when COVID kind of ended, I basically repositioned my entire gym where I pulled myself away from it. My first one in 2012,
Yeah.
still was there all the time, coaching, training, and this fire just left me. Like I remember I told my wife, I was like, I don't want to train. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't want to compete anymore. She's like, are you sure? And I'm like, there's no desire. It just like went away. So people were like, you're still really fit. Like, I love working out. I don't want to hurt like I hurt before. I don't want to train 6 hours in the gym. I don't want any of that. I just want to enjoy my fitness, enjoy my family, enjoy my time, stay in really good shape, do what I want to do, feel no pressure. And I have no desire to beat anybody at anything like that. And when we reopened the gym, I had redesigned it to where I had coaches running everything. I transitioned into, instead of me being a coach, I coached the coaches and then they facilitated out to the members. So I wanted to no longer be the person the members came to. And it took about 6 months. And then all of a sudden they're getting all the text messages. They're getting everything. And then I'm the one who's helping them figure out how to respond and do these things. And I had a lot of people really mad at me
Yeah.
that I didn't go to the gym for about a year and a half for multiple reasons. One, I felt guilty, I felt bad, but I realized that like this was what was best for me. I needed to stop feeling the expectations of all these people and what I owed them. And I realized I owed myself the happiness that I deserved, and I didn't need to feel the pressure. Even though I own the gym, I could close it.
Yeah.
Like it was a business. And I'm like, most people don't know the owner of businesses. Why in a CrossFit gym do you have to be the one doing everything? So it took about a year, and like the gym grew bigger than it ever did with me in there because now all of a sudden everything is system. It's a system. It runs the same. The classes are the same. The coaching's the same. Everything's the same. And I had one of my coaches was like, I'd love to own a gym one day. And I was like,
Really?
come in the back with me real quick. And this is about 2 years ago. And he's like, well, I'm not really sure if I'm ready right now. And I was like, all right, well, let's plan for it. I go, I'm setting this up to sell because it doesn't need me now.
Yeah.
And then time goes by, now people are coming to him and then that's why I sold it to. He got an investor I actually found him an investor inside the gym who I knew was retired and had some money. And so he came in and partnered with him, and then we sold the gym, and I'm still a part of it, but that was in August. We closed that sale.
Oh, okay.
but I basically made it to where it was sellable and it
Yeah.
had value because it didn't need me anymore. And in fact, people were probably like, that makes sense. Nick doesn't even need to be here anymore. But now I look at him and I'm like, ooh, now you're the face. And it's like a business, you can create a job for yourself, which is what we do with box owners. And it's really hard to create a business because you really can't afford to pay people. But fortunately for me, I had all this other revenue coming in from other places that I put them all on salary. I cut myself back, occasionally would give myself maybe a distribution if I did something, but I stopped paying myself and I looked at it like I'm going to build up the equity inside of this. I'm going to build this up to become a sellable thing. And then I'll pass this off to somebody who wants to continue what I started that I'm no longer passionate in doing, which is growing this and working in the day to day. Because I can reach such a bigger audience another way, and I enjoyed it. And then I got into real estate. So we own a couple Airbnb properties. That's been fun. So yeah, it's kind of just like
Yeah. Is
been a
it,
blast.
do you
I
feel a
mean,
lot better now that you don't have to juggle all of those things? Like, I think juggling all those things, it's got to be hard. There's got to be days that it just takes a toll, right?
yeah, because you can easily start to put like a price tag on it. Where you're like, dang, I gotta go in and like do this thing. It's like a $30 fix, but like I gotta spend 4 hours. Like, or this isn't even a thing. This is just somebody like whatever. So like it was very much like there was always something that would pop up, and I'm like, well, where is my time actually the most valuable? And I realized that my time was mostly getting pulled in areas where it was like anybody could do this. Like
Yeah.
anybody could do this thing right here. Like, why am I having to do this? This doesn't fill me up.
Yeah.
Because I think there comes a point where people could be like, oh wow, that's such like a privileged thing, like, or oh yeah, wow, I didn't fill you up. Like, wow. And it's like, yeah, but I've worked so hard and I've set myself up in a position to where I can say no. And I think a lot of times we always are just like, we tell people like, just say no, just say no. And it's like, no, earn the right to say no. You should say yes as much as possible whenever you can until you can't. A
Yeah.
lot of times we say like, no, just say no. Like you emailed, hey, you want to do this podcast? Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Like I ask people to go on podcasts sometimes, like friends of mine who competed with me, and they're like, "Oh, he probably wants something," or blah blah blah. No, and they don't even respond. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Why?" Like, "Oh, I gotta say no to what? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Like, but that's the thing. Like, it might even be that, like, example, like I'm basically just I'm going on a road trip on Saturday. I'm just heading out to the mountains. I'm getting in my Jeep, just going for like 7, 8 days. I don't even know, and I don't have anything booked. I'm just heading.
Yeah.
Because I can, because that's what I want to do. I'm still gonna wake up and go to a coffee shop and like sit down but then I'm gonna hike for 6 hours. I'm gonna shut down and I'm just gonna be like, what's next?
Yeah.
And a lot of that has come down to like from when I was 22 until now, like I've always said I have to set my family up and myself up so that money is not an issue. And I think people will act like money doesn't matter. And money is the one thing when you're having a good day, you spend it. When you're having a bad day, you spend it. When you're doing like everything revolves around it. So
Yeah.
I've had this mantra since I was a kid because I grew up with nothing and saw what it was. And I didn't want that my goal is to make money a non-factor in my decision making. So I don't want to say yes or no because of money.
Yeah.
I want it to be purely all my decisions don't stem from that. I want it to be my relationships don't fail or succeed because of money, right? Divorces happen because money problems, like, so everything was about that. So like, it just frees you up. Somebody said to me, they're like, "Oh, your social media is starting to change," and I'm like, because I really feel like I can help so many more people in things that matter more than just exercise and working out. Like that's an aspect of it.
Yeah.
That'll always be something that I do, but it's never been about like I'm just money and stuff. It's like I know that I can help, and I want some people are like, oh, why do you want me to sign up? Because it's good. There's so much more that I can do than just like here's this awesome program. Like there's just
Yeah.
like
You're
so
like,
it's
that's been a part of me for so long, and it's something I'm good at and can do, but there's so much more. There's these other
yeah.
sides to me, and there's these other ways I can help, and these other ways I can be there and
Yeah, like
support.
even I could set up a business for somebody and they could start making money within 60 minutes, free, not having to spend $1 to start it. It's so simple we complicate everything. Everything in life is simple. We just complicate it, and we see people doing things so big and extravagant, and then most of it's not even real. And it's all this stuff. So we think like there's got to be a simpler, easier way. And it's like you've been spending 3 years trying to find the simpler, easier way. You know how far you could have been if you just started the way?
Yeah.
Like,
Come on. If you get the process here,
yeah,
you could
start.
be where you wanted to be by now.
And the thing is people think it's so like, well, yeah, but I don't know this or I don't know that or yeah, but what if? And it's like you don't know much. And the people that succeed are the ones that think they know and they don't. And they do the worst thing and it sucks and it's horrible. And they're like, oh, that was bad. But they learned, oh, that's a little bit. And you keep doing it until you're 5 years in and you're like, dang, if I knew what I knew now, I wouldn't have started.
Yeah.
And that's why I think as kids, and children were more apt to try crazy, extravagant things and come up with these crazy dreams and wild stories and all this stuff. And as an adult, you're like, that doesn't make any sense. It would never happen. And as we get older and we learn more, we see the failures of others. We see the way that they struggle and the things they go through. So we protect others and we protect ourselves by saying, I don't know really how to do that exactly. Like, I don't know if that would make sense. I got to wait till I'm ready. I got to wait till this. I got to wait till that. But a kid would be like, let's
Let's
go.
do it. As
Because
an
I don't
adult, you
know.
think your way out of things, you
Yeah.
know?
And because the kid doesn't know any better, but he thinks he does.
Yeah.
Kid thing, he's like, I know everything. Let's go. And it's like, that's why it's so easy to just jump in and go. So I try to live in that, like whenever I feel scared or fearful or unsure, that's what I lean into. And I'm like, you know what? The worst thing that can happen is nobody ever sees and nobody ever knows. And I
Yeah.
learned something. Like, people are so scared of what? If you post something and nobody likes it, nobody saw it. They have no idea. Who
Yeah.
freaking cares? Like, I posted a podcast and no one listened. How do you feel about it? I mean, I felt like it was good. I felt like people should have listened. Cool. Do it again.
Yeah. Did you
What
get
would hurt
something
it?
out of it? It doesn't,
Yeah.
everybody's
No.
afraid of people seeing them fail or, not that they didn't, what everybody else thinks. It's like, no, what do you think? How does it make you feel? How does that
In
fulfill you?
in there was a thing, a book. I read a lot of books, and there was a story, and I don't know if, but in like San Francisco, like Silicon Valley, pretty much every tech company has, I believe it's called a tinker room. And what it is it's got like a code on it, like a lock, and you have to like basically get time for it, and you lock yourself in. And it's like a crappy basement or attic or garage with just a bunch of crap. And what they do is they say, you go whenever you have an idea, go in, lock yourself in the tinker room, and fail. Fail without anybody ever seeing you.
Yeah.
Mess up. Because if you come up with something, bring it out of the tinker room and we'll go and we'll make it better. But you could go in there for 5 hours and play around like a kid with some crazy idea and get nowhere and you just leave it and you leave. And you
Yeah.
go out of the room. Never tell anybody. Nobody ever has to know. That's what we're missing. We're always doing things out in front in public, and people are so scared of looking bad, which nobody really cares, that we need tinker rooms where it's just like lock yourself in there and who cares?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea and a great concept to go off of. So, I mean, I could talk to you forever. You're having great, but I'm sure you have other things to do. So we'll just I'll thank you for coming on, but I'll just have to ask a couple questions. For one, like if you were to give advice just to young kids, like not like high school, 18, like what's the best advice you think somebody could hear as going into adulthood or what not?
Ooh, best advice to give to a kid like going in is find somebody doing what you want to do and ask for help. So I think a lot of times kids will see somebody doing something, they're like, but if the secrets are all there
Yeah.
and you can get there super fast, like the person who's already done it is truthfully the answer. And a lot of times people will say yes. If a kid messaged me in a very like authentic, like, hey, I'm 18, I really want to figure out how to start an online programming company or blah, blah, I'd be like, dude, what are your questions?
Yeah.
Like, I think we create stories inside of our head, especially as kids, and we don't really understand that, like, just ask. There are more people that are willing to help you than you believe, and actually take the advice because you'll learn more from doing than you will from thinking okay, I'm gonna figure out a different way or no. There's no secrets. It's all out there.
Yeah. Just don't be afraid to ask, and like know
No,
that you don't know
anybody.
everything.
Yeah. No, I know very little.
Yeah, it takes me. I think it's Socrates. It was like the one thing I know is I know nothing, and
Yep.
so, but and then
Yep.
if you were going to say like society wise, like a lot of people when I say this, they're like, I don't. We need more compassion, or we need more empathy, more. Just my one guy's like, we just need to be neighbors again. But like, what do you think as a society like we're lacking, or we could use more of, or something like that?
I think we're lacking in accountability and more so in how we receive it. I think a lot of times people will say, "Oh, I'm going to do blah 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 blah," and then their neighbor or their friend or their family member will come over and be like, "How's that going?" And then they immediately get mad because they're like, "Oh, you don't understand. I'm doing." It's like you said it.
Yeah,
Whereas I think that the compassion and the empathy has to be reversed. So a lot of times people get more defensive and upset when somebody's really just checking in. It's like if you said to me, you're like, "Hey, so you were talking about how you really wanted to do this thing and I hadn't done it." Instead of attacking you, being like, "You're right, like I haven't," like because I just don't know where to start.
yeah,
Like I think a lot of times it's more of the reverse end. So the reason why we don't have the empathy, we don't have that accountability is because the person who would step up and say something is too worried about what the person's going to respond back with.
yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, other than that, I think that we hit a lot of subjects, and a lot of your intake or outputs and everything like that I agree with, and I think it was a great episode. And thanks for coming on. We'll just ask you where can people find you if there's anything that like you want to go to Instagram? Do you have a website? Like where can people reach you if they're looking for programming or advice with the things you're doing now and venturing into?
Yeah, you got zeusmethod.com where you can try out literally like everything unlimited for a week free. There's also uh, Instagram, Nick Urankar, TikTok's like Nick.Urankar. Um, but yeah, I'm pretty much all over the place. If you want to stay in one of my Airbnbs coming into South Bend, you can hit me up and do that because I don't think it'll probably pop up that any of them are mine. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. And then if anybody could take one thing from this episode, what do you think they should take?
Ooh. Oh man, act, action. I think one of my favorite quotes, and where we get messed up is we think success leads to happiness, but
Yeah.
what it actually is happiness leads to success. I think we can be happy right where we are. And I think if we are, we can act a lot easier. I think the actions are what creates the results. So sometimes we just get stuck in the mud and we think that we're stuck and we're not. We aren't used to acting. So get around people who are doing things that you want to be doing and just follow them around because it'll stick.
Yeah. Okay. Well, unless there's anything else you want to say, I think we can wrap it up. And so,
No,
okay. Hey,
no.
well, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time and coming on. And so,
Yeah, dude, it was good.
okay, man, have a good one.
All right.
See you.